Hi, this is Margaret Byrd and welcome to Color Quest and welcome to a road trip I am taking currently in the state of Colorado. Today on Color Quest, I'm going to be collecting red dirt. The ground here in this part of Colorado is filled with iron oxide. It's used to make all different kinds of things, one of which is clay. And I'm going to be making my own red clay slurry in order to dye fiber. So come with me on a little van trip and let's see what this beautiful red earth will bring to us in the way of natural color on fiber. So we are zipping around, packing up and getting ready to go on our van trip around Colorado. And I have some prep to do. I'm going to be looking at mud as a color source, and I need to prep the fibers so that I have the best chance of the magic of mud binding to my fibers. So let's walk through those quick steps and make sure I have everything ready to go. Here are my supplies that I'm going to need while I'm traveling, and that is some cotton 100%. I'm also going to treat them with tannin, and I already have some tannin mixed up here at 10%, so I'm going to go ahead and do that now before I leave. And then I'm going to be bringing this with me because I'm going to need soy milk as part of the binder that's actually used with the mud itself. So the tannin hopefully will add a little additional bind here onto the cotton itself, and this will be mixed to make the slurry. So we'll do a little prep now before we head off to the airport. So as I was putting away a campsite today, I noticed that there was quite a bit of charcoal, beautiful charcoal, left over from a wood fire. It can be turned into a pigment, or it is a pigment, and you can grind it up and use it for all kinds of things. I may think about making a slurry with it to see if it will adhere to fiber. Not sure, but I figure when I see something like that, it's a little treasure, might as well pick it up and take it. So we are a few days into our trip and a few hundred miles, I think close to 600 or 700 miles traveled. We've crossed through so many different landscapes. We are now in the Mesa Verde area, and I have the earth pigments that I'm going to build a soy milk slurry from so that we can dip our fiber. Now the fiber itself has been treated in a tannin mordant in order to help with that bond, but the soy milk is actually going to help as well with the bind from the pigment to the fiber. And I'm going to mix up my, what I'm calling slurries, as well as put some design patterns into the fiber themselves. I'm going to be working with a tie-dye resist using stones. And none of the natural resources that I'm using here have been collected from any of the ancestral lands here at Mesa Verde. So let's start making our mud dye. So here are the supplies that I have. I have these 2 larger mason jars, one of which I'm going to make with the iron oxide red clay. And then since I found that charcoal from the fire pit, I'm gonna make a charcoal slurry here. I have the soy milk, which is gonna be used as the binder, the fiber that's been treated. I have the red soil that I took from Red Canyon close to Canyon City. And I have in here the charcoal that I collected from the campsite that we stayed at. I did not bring a mortar and pestle. I just didn't even think about that. I think the red dirt is fine enough, but obviously I'm gonna have to smash up the charcoal here. The pieces were pretty big, should be easy. So I'm just gonna use a camping plate and a cup, and I'm just gonna smash it up. And I'll use the rubber bands to tie some rocks into the fiber, and hopefully we'll be able to see a difference. So that plastic camp plate doesn't really work that well. It's not hard enough. So I've switched to a camp pot. I'll use the bottom and see if I can't squish it a little bit more. Wish I had brought my mortar and pestle, darn it. This is a lesson in making do with what you have and improvising when you need to. All very important when you're out foraging. Now, if I were making paint or ink or something like that, I would definitely be wanting to grind this down into a much finer powder, and it would go through a mulling process even. However, I'm not too worried about it since I'm making kind of a mud bath for it, just like we do in any natural dyeing where we have an organic substance. We like to chop it into smaller pieces. It gives more surface area for the color to come out. I believe that that's the same sort of philosophy behind why you would grind up earth pigments, because the more you grind it up, the more access you have to the color itself. So I'm not going to worry too much about the fact that I can't grind it into a fine powder. Without a mortar and pestle, it's almost impossible for me to do that. So I'm just going to break it into smaller chunks, like I said, and be perfectly satisfied with what I get in the way of a mud. What I just found. It's a charcoal wishbone. How cute. That must mean I'm going to have good luck, right? Okay, I've smashed up quite a bit of charcoal. I don't know if it's enough, but I think I will go ahead and add some red dirt to the other jar and begin adding the soy milk. And I'll kind of see what the color looks like. I have quite a bit of the red dirt, so I'm going to add a lot there. And if I need to add more of the charcoal, I'll do that. But let's see what we got so far. Yeah. So as I add this, I'm just sort of going in with my hand and trying to break pieces apart. If I have a piece that just doesn't want to break with my hands, I'm going to remove that and not add that to the slurry. I have enough that I should be able to, let go of some of these pieces that may not be ready to give their color because I can't break them with my hand. So dirty hands. May even have some on my face. Can't tell. So a couple of things about where I collected this. One is that both areas were exposed or created by humans. So the red soil that I took was from a cut in the road. So where earth has been exposed, earth pigment's been exposed because humans have disturbed the earth in the way of creating roads or construction and so forth, is a great place to take earth pigment from. And obviously the charcoal was from a human-made fire that resulted in charcoal, which, by the way, you can also use as a great drawing tool. Super easy way to access earth pigment that way. Now, the other thing is I did not take from any land that was designated as a national monument. So that's something that you want to be aware of, and making sure that you are sampling earth pigments from an area that is open to you as a forager. Along riverbeds is another great place where you can access earth pigment. And again, just make sure that it's on land that you have a right as an individual to be on and to be sampling from. Just important sort of ethical guidelines around collecting earth pigment. So this is super fun. So these are pieces that are still too hard to grind down, but these are going to be the perfect rocks for me to use in my tie-dye resist. So I have a couple different shapes and sizes, so I can use these to go along with your mud friends. It's kind of a fun discovery. It just came to me as I was removing them from the powder that I was making the red dirt. Oh my gosh, treasures, look at this. Oh wow, so funny. You never know what you're gonna find. Sometimes you just gotta get dirty. That's what it takes in the name of art. It's time to add the soy milk. I am using 1 quart. I have no recipe for this, so we're just gonna guess it, and my trusty assistant is gonna help me. So we're gonna put 2/3 of this into this one, and 1/3 or so into this one. Did you just find me a stick?
I did find you a stick.
The perfect stick.
Perfect stick.
The perfect
Swivel
stir stick. I'm just gonna mix it up in soy milk. And then I'm gonna add some water to it to get some volume. Turn it over, go into our iron oxide mud that we're making. Beautiful pink color. Mix it in. We'll add some water, tie up our fiber, and put it into the mixture. We just need some volume here in order to accommodate the fiber. As you know, it's important for the fiber to be able to kind of move around in anything that we're using to dye it with. I want it to be able to move around as we travel the next few days. So as with all or most things that we dye, we want to wet the fiber. So I'm going to put this, I've tied all of the ties in with the rocks and the iron oxide rocks that we found, as well as just some rocks I found here. We're going to put them in here to this pot. We will cover them with water and we'll just let them sit in this water for like an hour to get them ready to go into the slurry pots. But right now we're going to jump in the van, drive up to watch the sunset over Park Peak in Mesa Verde. Then it'll be time to throw our fiber into our slurries and we'll bring them on the rest of our road trip and see what kind of colors are going to emerge on that fiber. Let's get going. So I had to just pull over the side of the road when I saw this behind me. Collecting as the sun was setting, you couldn't really see the vibrancy of the red, but right now in the middle of the day, as we drove past this area near Silverton, Colorado, you can see this incredible iron deposit that is making these mountains so red. And the iron oxide is what's going to be making the fiber, hopefully, a reddish color. So as long as we're here, let's check on how our mud dye is going. We'll move it around. Let it sit for a few more days. So 1 full week, 1,000 miles across some of maybe the most beautiful land I've ever seen, at least in the most recent past. Incredible country this is in Colorado. Now, my 2 slurries had a little bit of a high altitude heat issue, and the red mud slurry, the mason jar broke. So it's had a slow leak over the last couple of days. It's now just sitting in the red mud. The ash slurry is still okay, but I did check on it like 2 days ago. And I will tell you that if you choose to do this, as I have with soy milk as a binder, soy milk and 90-degree heat in a van do not necessarily mix. It stinks to high heaven. So I am going to open up the jars and start the rinsing process, and we will see what we get. Luckily for you, you don't have to smell what I smell. Thanks so much for joining me on my van trip around Colorado. I have the fiber here with me now, and it's been, gosh, close to 6 weeks since I was there and I made this. It's been washed, and really the red mud dye did work, but I think it was impacted by the fact that we lost the liquid, and it was only a week in the slurry. So I'm very happy that I wrapped it with the same red rocks, because that really added some extra color to it. Let's look at that. So I really like how it turned out, and you can definitely see how the strength of the red rock really added to the design element. But overall, for 1 week in mud, I'd say it looks pretty cool and is definitely worth trying. Now, unfortunately, my last second brilliant idea of using charcoal didn't do much of anything. There is a faint grayness that you can see, and the overall shift in color here from the tannin to this is kind of a greenish color, but I definitely would have to do some more time, probably have ground up the charcoal a little bit more. But know that it is a earth pigment that you can use within your art practice. Now, you might be wondering where I am. This background might not look familiar. In fact, I'm going to invite you next week on Color Quest to come join me in the beautiful country of Peru. I am here for 1 month on an artist residency, and I'd like to invite you into my studio and show you what we are working on here. I'm working with a dye master in Urubamba. She is from Chinchero, which is a very famous place for natural color and natural dyes in general. So I hope to see you next week. Remember, if you've liked this content, give it a thumbs up, subscribe down below, and tell your friends. The more the merrier. Have a great week. I'll see you next Friday. No. And then I have